To better understand how all the basic types of living things are classified, let us begin by taking a look at the 5 kingdoms of life. Every living thing is made up of at least one cell. Although most cells are so small they can only be seen under a microscope, they are still the basic building blocks of life. A drop of water from a pond can contain millions of living things of many different types, and many are made up of only one cell. These one-celled organisms are the simplest living things and belong to either one of 2 kingdoms. The one-celled members of the kingdom Minera contains the smallest and most ancient forms of life. Some of today's Minerans look almost exactly like the fossils of the earliest forms of life that first appeared on Earth over 3 billion years ago. Minerans are unique because their single cells lack separate nuclei within their cytoplasm. Minerans can be animal-like, such as these bacteria that must absorb food in order to survive. Some of these Mineran bacteria cause serious diseases in other living things. But some are helpful and live in the intestines of human beings where they produce needed vitamins. Minerans can also be plant-like, such as these blue-green algae that can make their own food from water, carbon dioxide, and sunlight by photosynthesis. Many scientists think of blue-green algae as the simplest type of plant. Members of this kingdom, the protists, are very tiny living things that were once called the protozoa. These creatures are much larger than bacteria and have only one cell. But unlike Minerans, their cells have a separate nucleus, and the cytoplasm of their cells is much more complicated than Mineran cells. Just as with the Minerans, there are animal-like protists, such as this Euploides, that can actively seek out food, or this Paramecium that moves by wiggling little hairs on the outside of its one-celled body. Euploides and Paramecia are like animals because they cannot make their own food. One-celled algae are the protists that are like plants. They can make their own food by photosynthesis. These algae are very important because they provide food for many other life forms, and they also make huge amounts of oxygen. For the oceans and other bodies of water are filled with these tiny creatures. Some of these simple plants move about just as swiftly as animal-like protists. And many clump together to create colonies of cells, a feat which probably led to the creation of the many-celled creatures found in all of the 3 other kingdoms of living things. The members of this kingdom that we are most familiar with are the fungi that grow on the sides of old dead trees, and mushrooms. Unlike protists and Minerans, fungi are formed from many different cells. Fungi cannot make food by photosynthesis, so they must spend their whole lives embedded in their food supplies. Even mushrooms are embedded in the earth and have a huge underground network of threads by which they take in nutrients. Scientists have recently discovered a single fungus whose thread network covers nearly 30 acres and weighs over 100 tons, making it one of the world's largest living things. Fungi also make up an important part of the driest living things on Earth, the lichens. The lichens we see here are algae living together with fungi in a way that is helpful to each. The algae part of the lichen creates food for the fungi part, and the fungi part of the lichen helps keep the algae part alive by preventing it from drying out. Of all living things, plants are probably the most important to humans. Like fungi, plants are complicated organisms made from many cells. Plants, just like certain Minerans and protists, can trap the energy of the sunlight and convert it into food. and into oxygen for us to breathe by photosynthesis. The fact that true plants do not have to search for food causes them to spend their entire lives pretty much in one spot. But plants do move their bodies so they can capture the most sunlight. This movement just happens so slowly we can't see it. Like plants and fungi, true animals are complicated creatures made from many cells. Animals like fungi and certain minerans and protists cannot carry out photosynthesis. Instead, they must take in food to survive. Because they must find food, they are much more active than plants. And the variety of body types and feeding styles found in the animal kingdom is truly unbelievable.